Craig's going to do, to shoot some questions into the chat. And then at the end, we'll just do a more active Q&A where you're welcome to pop on, take yourself off mute, or just throw anything, again, any questions into the chat, and we'll do our best to address them. And if we can't get to them all within the hour, because we will try and stay on time with the hour, we either myself or Jay or Craig will reach out directly to you and make sure that your questions get answered.
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
So
Craig,
a lot of it's going to be specific to, everyone's situation. What I'm going to try to do is I'm going to keep it basic. And then if you guys have any questions as we work through it, just let me know. We built a little bit of a slideshow that's just going to give you guys a little bit of a general overview. And then if you guys want to spin any questions off of that, let me know. And if I'm missing something or you guys are missing part of the presentation and you have a question, just let me know and we'll get through it. So I'll start sharing if everyone's ready to go. You good, Kat? Good? Okay.
Good to go.
All right, so first of all, I'm Craig Brunson with The Mortgage Coach. We're based out of Aurelia. We have a Barrie office as well. Just to give you some background on myself, I've been in the industry for about 2 years now. I came from the automotive world as a general sales manager for Dodge for quite a while, and had some friends in the industry, and I made a move over a couple of years ago, and we've been doing this ever since. So we'll just go over some stuff first, guys, that we're going to cover. This one is, get this out of the way right out of the gate. This is one of the biggest questions I get asked as a broker. And my answer to this always will be, for any traditional business lending, we will not be charging you guys a fee. We get paid a compensation from the lender wherever we fund your file. So our knowledge really is to be used for you guys solely. And the only time that you would ever actually encounter a fee using our services would be if we were looking at private lending. And we can get into that a little bit deeper later on. So what we're going to go over, just going to do some basic understanding of cash flow, leveraging, ROI, which is return on investment, net worth, just basic terminology, just comparisons with where the bank's telling us to lend our money versus what we're going to be looking at in a real estate market, RRSP, etc., just for investing, and then a very basic overview of a longer term retirement plan from investing in real estate and how to get started with that. So we can get right into it. So we'll go over kind of understanding the basics. Cash flow essentially is going to be money coming in and money going out. When we're talking real estate investing, cash flow really is, your overall expenses included in the property, plus what you're generating from rents and, Airbnbs over the course of the mortgage and kind of month to month. Appreciation is essentially what you're going to see as your asset, which is your home, is going up. And these kind of get incorporated into the numbers that we're going to look at today as well. ROI, return on your investment, and that's essentially going to be the difference between what you've put in and what you're getting out. Net worth is essentially going to be your overall assets versus your liabilities, and the difference between the two is commonly referred to as a net worth. And then leveraging, in today's term, we're going to be using it in the real estate, of course. So leverage really is using equity in your home to look at possibly reinvesting into something else. It could be real estate, it could be other things as well. But for the sake of today's presentation, we'll cover real estate. Okay, so we built a little bit of a basic presentation here and kind of just give you an overview of what it looks like if you were to start investing in real estate versus elsewhere. So let's say we had $130,000 to start with. This could have come in the form of a refinance, liquid assets, anything like that. And we're going to just go from there. So let's say you had $130,000. So you have any, yeah, sorry.
Sorry, can I just interject? I realize we have the little poll and we'll get an idea of where people's understanding.
Yeah, for sure. Sorry, I'm in a full screen, so let me get out of this just while we're chatting.
No, that's cool. Sorry to interrupt. It's just, I think it's good timing as we lead into this. So just for interest's sake, a little question's going to pop up on your screen if everybody wants to answer. I like to play the Jeopardy music usually during this. Can everybody see that? Oh, there we go. Perfect. And I think, okay, and share the results. So this is good info to know. So based on feedback, people are looking forward to learning more, and there's basically zero understanding of real estate investment. So this is, you're in the right place.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.
As I roll through, feel free to slow me down as we go through it. I know some of the terminology or maybe some of the basic understanding, it can snowball into maybe not understanding the bigger picture as well. So if I'm going too quick, just let me know. Kat, if you don't mind just letting me know if someone has a question, I'll stop, because when I'm in the slideshow mode, I actually can't see you guys.
No problem.
Okay, so more importantly too, I guess before we get a little bit deeper into the numbers, essentially refinancing and what we're going to focus on tonight is people that currently own homes with equity in them. And as most of you know, in this market, that's probably everyone that's purchased at any point, you know, in the last 5 to 10 years. With the growth that we've seen in the last 2 to 3 years, we have a pretty good client base of people that have been able to pull equity out of their house and purchase something else. You know, you can consolidate debt, you can increase your monthly cash flow for your own living expenses, but you can also use that that equity in your home to leverage into something that's going to offer you a long-term return or an ROI. And especially today when we're looking at interest rates that we do have, there's a lot of capacity and possibility for you guys to grow a serious net worth through investing in real estate. So I just wanted to get that out there first. So let's get back to this game, if you'll call it that. So say $130,000. So we refinanced your house. We paid out the current mortgage, which there's a good option of that being at a higher rate than what you would currently be going into today. We could have used some of that funds or some of those proceeds to pay out debts as well, so that you guys aren't carrying any high month-to-month expenses with compounding interest, such as credit cards, lines of credit, anything like that, car loans, student debt. Essentially anything outside of past due taxes, we can usually pool that into your mortgage. So let's say we had done that, we saved you some money there up front in interest, and then you took out about $130,000 of your home's equity, and I'll break costs down for you a little bit further. But let's just pretend the money had came from there. So you're looking at purchasing an investment property, more than likely not owner occupied. Let's just use $650,000. If you were to put that down payment down 20%, $130,000, leaving you a mortgage of $520,000 on the investment property. We'll use a 5% appreciation, which I'm sure Kat and Jay can speak to right now, is very conservative. Right now, I think we're seeing quite a bit more than that, but they do say in an average market, homes are appreciating usually between 5 to 7%. And I think that number is a little bit conservative over what we've been seeing in the last 10 years. So let's just say over the course of 15 years, you've purchased a house at $650,000. It's appreciating at 5% a year. 15 years from now, you'd have a remaining mortgage of $251,000 with a future property value of 1.35. Equity in the property less than mortgage remaining would be $1 million. So you minus the initial down payment out of there as well, as that was an investment out of pocket that you would be paying interest on in your current mortgage, and you'd be looking at just shy of $1 million in profit. Obviously, we know that in any sort of investment, whether it's real estate, whether it's stocks, it's bonds, it's mutual funds, there'll be laws, but we're looking at a longer game for 15 years. It's not a get-rich-quick scheme, and you know, despite what the prices may look like now, even if we do see a small correction and we're looking at a normal market, a 5% return is going to give you a good indicator of what we're looking at long-term. So if we compare that, between RRSPs, mutual funds at the same return. We just did a little bit of a cost breakdown for you. So let's say on the $130,000 that you borrowed against your house, which is your own equity, it's going to cost you roughly $400 a month. Depending on rate and other circumstances, that's going to be pretty close. So assuming you took that same $400 a month and you invested that in a mutual fund, an RRSP or an RESP at a 5% return, after 15 years, it's going to be about $107,000 if you're not contributing on top of that. And if you look at the real estate side of this, the 615K property that was owned for 15 years at the same 5% with the mortgage and your initial down payment accounted for, you're looking at a pretty substantial difference. The nice thing about the real estate side of it too is it's bigger numbers to start with. You're being lent the money. So your compounding interest on the larger amounts over the course of time really does offer you guys quite a bit bigger returns when you're looking at it in the long scheme. Do you guys have any questions so far?
Nothing's come up in the chat.
No? Okay. All right, so we'll roll through the next one. So that's just a basic, comparison between your investing in real estate and you're investing in the open market. So if you could do this without increasing your monthly budget, what is this going to look like? So essentially what we're going to do is the first one is definitely going to cost you money. It's going to be increasing the budget. But let's say inside that $130,000 increase in the mortgage, we had also cleared up some debts that are going to account for the same amount. We built a little blueprint based off of that to show you that how you can create up to $2 million for retirement. So let's say you've purchased the first property. After 3 to 4 years, what we would do is we would refinance that first investment property and we would start to leverage against the investment property rather than your owner occupied home. And we kind of repeat that purchase over the course of time until you've acquired multiple rental properties. Typically what you're going to do is you're going to leverage them upwards of 80%. That's what most lenders are going to allow you to refinance up to in a traditional aspect. We use that money against the one that would be tenanted. You would then have someone else paying the mortgage in there. And you would use the equity from the rental property to then in turn purchase something else. And then you repeat the method over and over again. Of course, these are loose numbers for the 2 million, but assuming with 3 homes owned right now, on 650K value with your appreciation accounted for, you will be seeing numbers at minimum of 2 million over the course of the life of these mortgages and for the length of time that you guys hold on to them as well. But that being said, this is more or less just a blueprint to show you what you can do and what compounding appreciation is going to look for and look like over the long run. And a lot of people will say, okay, do you know what? Well, the mortgage is getting more expensive as you leverage. There may be negative cash flow in some of these properties. And we're going to go over that in the next few slides as well. But this gives you kind of just a good indicator on a base blueprint when you hear people that are refinancing, purchasing properties, and then they're refinancing those properties to purchase more properties. They're creating long-term wealth in real estate. Each property is not actually necessarily not costing them money. But you are seeing the appreciation from the value in the property itself as well. So that's something that needs to be accounted for when you're looking at this.
Craig, I have a question.
Yes.
Considering I think the bulk of people that we have here haven't yet gotten into that second investment property. So can you speak to, and I know it's going to be unique to each person, but generally what the qualifications would look like? So aside from, or even what down payment they're going to need for that second property and kind
yeah,
of
sorry. So when I said up to 80%, what I should have said is 80% of the value of the property is what most lenders are going to lend up to. So that would mean that you would need roughly a minimum of 20% down on that first property. When it's not owner occupied, in order to use those rents, so the market rents or your rental leases to offset the cost of the mortgage, you need to have at least 20% down or you can't consider it. So what I mean by that is you can't put 5% down on a house and then say that you're renting it out and use that rental income to qualify. Any rental purchase that's not owner occupied, you need to assume that you're going to need 20% down in order for them to use that. So essentially what we would do is I build the file backwards. So I would look at your current home, I look at your current equity. We would qualify your primary residence on the cheapest mortgage possible. So we'd look at qualifying incomes, maybe clearing up any debts like I had mentioned before, and take out at least 20% of what you need to purchase an investment property. And then what I do at the same time is I actually run both scenarios to make sure that when we do the refinance with the intent to buying something else, that we've left enough room in your approval and or know where the market rents are going to be so that you can qualify for the purchase on your first home as well. What I've seen in the past is people over leverage the first home and then they have a harder time qualifying for the second mortgage. So I look at it at least as a two-step plan when I'm doing it. So I always make sure that we have enough equity to pull out, A, B, that your income and everything else is going to support it as well. And then we build it from there. Does that answer kind of your question, Kat?
Perfect for me, I think. Yep. Any
Does
other
anyone
questions?
does anyone else have any questions? I know it can be a lot.
Don't be shy.
No? Okay. So just some myth and fact that we threw in here. Myth is, and this is very common, a lot of people think that paying off your mortgage is going to lead to financial freedom quicker. And logically speaking, yes, in a lot of people's scenarios, that may be the case. But if you're someone that plans on purchasing, 2 to 3, upwards 5 or plus income generating properties, what starts to happen after then is the longer that you hold them, as long as you're breaking even on your monthly expenses, what's happening is you now have someone else paying down the principal amounts of these mortgages, and it's creating more equity in your home and in your investment. So paying off your mortgage quicker actually isn't necessarily the quickest way, because if you own 5 properties with 5 different tenants paying down these mortgages, not only are they bringing down the principal balances of the mortgages, the house is also appreciating. So you have to look at it over the course of time. That gap is going to become further and further. The properties are going to keep cash flowing better. It also gives you more opportunities to then leverage against them and buy more properties. So a lot of people, that are doing long-term holds, when they sell these properties, they may still have a mortgage on it, but the amount of money that's generated and equity that's built in these houses actually is going to create someone to have a much higher net worth than just trying to pay off the single mortgage you have on your home now. And some of the best real estate investors in the world actually have a lot of debt, but they have that much more in assets. So you'll hear people speak to sometimes good debt and bad debt. Usually good debt is anything that's tied into an asset or something that's creating you money. Bad debt is consumer debt, buying boats, going on vacations, that kind of thing. So I would definitely say it's a myth that paying off your mortgage will lead to financial freedom quicker. I actually thoroughly believe it's the opposite. Fact, historically, rental rates don't go down. Realistically, rental rates are always going to be slightly higher than where an owner-occupied home would be. Now, when we're talking rental rates, I usually suggest to my clients considering a variable rate, especially when you're not the one paying the mortgage. You have a little bit more room, for fluctuation inside of that payment. So I always suggest making the cash flow, paying as much principal in the early years when you're paying a lot of the interest in the mortgage. And that's something that we can go into a little bit deeper. Myth, being a landlord is hard work. Starting out, it is always going to be the hardest on the first, of course. And once you've figured out how to do it, you can look at including property managers into the project as well, so that you're really not dealing with any of the hands-on aspect of it. And our next fact that is probably more relevant now than it's ever been is your kids will need help to buy a home. Now, that's not necessarily correlated to real estate investing for this, but helping kids out and helping kids get into the market if you own multiple properties is definitely quite a bit easier than if you have just paid off your current mortgage. more than likely, and I'd say about 90% of my first-time buyers all have co-signers and or they have been helped by parents in the form of gifted down payment. And as house prices continue to rise, that is going to be a much more common theme. Myth would be what happens in the next 2 to 3 years. I know we're in 2022. In the next 2 to 3 years is going to affect your return as an investor. We're going to assume that these are long-term holds. Flipping is something a little bit different entirely. And if you look over the scheme of growth, especially in our area, actually over the last 10 to 15 years, a blip in the market, even a 5 to 10% decrease, you'd actually be up still quite a bit. So just some extra facts there for you guys. Owning investment property is like having a second job that you don't have to go to. So what I mean by this is over the course of time, as these properties start cash flowing, you're starting to make money, you're going to get monthly cash flow that you did not have before. As that wealth gap widens, you're going to have that much more. And ideally, this is a really good investment and retirement strategy for people that aren't going to be getting paid a pension. They have the means to get in and use leveraged equity to build wealth long term. It does not take much to get really good residual income from these properties. As a lot of you know, I'm sure you know that market rents, so the rents that we're seeing in our area are insanely high, and I'm saying that lightly. And it is very unfortunate for people that are renting, but if you do have a mind for real estate investing, that is a really good indicator that there's a lot of opportunity when you're buying property. And something that I personally see day to day when I'm working on files is you'll have often, very often, I'll have people that are currently renting come to me and they're actually paying quite a bit more in rent than they can get approved for in a mortgage. So right away, that tells me that it's not necessarily an affordability factor as much as it is a qualifying factor. So what I mean by that is when we're qualifying a traditional deal, so when I say traditional, really anything with less than 20% down, these buyers are qualifying on a very, very stringent ratio platform. So they're stress tested, so their income stress tested at a higher rate than you guys are seeing today. And they're also only using really upwards of about 39% of their combined income to qualify. So what we're going to continue to see is if house prices continue on the path that they're on, the people that are going to be owning property are going to be the ones that are cashing out from this. And it's going to become that much harder for people that aren't in the market to purchase. So really what that should tell you as an investor is that there's going to be a need for rent, probably permanently. And they're going to be high rents. So they'll be collecting high rents based on that. So if you're looking at anything that's, you know, even 2 to 3 units, even 1 unit right now, there's a good chance that you're going to be very much so in positive cash flow for these properties. So over the course of time, that's just going to become more compounded. And that's kind of that in a gist. So you don't really have to do it alone. We do have a good group of people. A lot of us are already connected with local lawyers, accountants, home inspectors. I believe Kat knows a really good property manager, mortgage brokers, realtors, appraisers, and of course, insurance. There's a lot of value to be offered with the people that are professionals in this industry, and they can really help you look at investing in real estate differently than you may have considered before. And I can tell you from firsthand experience, having the right team in your corner is the difference from being successful and the difference from really struggling to figure it out. I know, you know, Kat and Jay, myself, we take great pride in making sure we have your best interest at heart, not now, but over the course of time. So it's really not a one and done thing. When we're talking real estate investing, it's a long-term relationship. And, you know, your success is our success and vice versa. So it's important to have the right team in your corner when you're taking this on. It is a lot, but the risk to reward, and the reward is second to none when you look at the numbers in the long scheme of things. So yeah, it's we have a really good connection with lots of everyone on this list. If you need anyone outside of this deal, even let us know. I'm sure we can get you connected. And then this is leading into a little bit of what I was saying earlier about negative cash flow. So there's a lot of talk right now about rates going up. Yes, they are going up. They have been going up for a while. Fixed rates have been anyway. Variable is still low, but we will start to see hikes in the variable rate soon. As low as they were, it's almost hard to believe that people thought that they would go lower. So that being said, yes, they will be going up from here. So one thing to consider too is, you know what, some of these properties, depending on how they're rented and cost of ownership, etc., there may be, you know, a small negative cash flow. So when you say negative cash flow, you can look at it as you're out money short term. But if we're looking at it as investing long term, if you're contributing $250 a month, let's say, to negative cash flow, that's going to cost you about $45,000 over 15 years. So the difference in profit in the long run is really just your initial investment, because you're still getting the appreciation in the property. And like I mentioned before, when you're getting appreciation on, you know, 650 versus what you'd be contributing elsewhere into an investment like an RRSP, that compounding is quite a bit more aggressive, and even negative cash flow really does present an opportunity for an investor to still make money in the long run. So that's just usually a question I get about this is does it make sense if it costs me money to own a property? Right now, and Kat and Jay might know this better than myself, but I actually just read something yesterday saying that Simcoe County's market is increasing about 10,000 a month. Sorry, a week or a month?
The past, yeah, that came up at a brokerage meeting, that we've seen an increase in sale prices of detached homes in this year, increasing by $10,000 a week. So last year we saw an increase, like year to year, or December to December, in the Orillia area anyway, about a 48% increase in sale price.
And I mean, obviously we all know that this isn't necessarily how it's going to always be. But when you're talking a cost of $250 a month on a return of $10,000 a week, I would be taking that investment every day. And of course, you know, I'm minimizing the long-term aspect of this. But that being said, you guys kind of get where I'm going with that. And right now, especially, I think an unparalleled investment is real estate. It's becoming more and more apparent the further that we go into this. And a personal belief of mine is that the real issue that we're facing right now with home prices is that we do not have enough homes. And simply speaking, from supply and demand, until that's corrected, I really do not foresee any kind of crash or major correction, if you will, in this market. So I believe if you're a homeowner or someone who has the capacity to get into the market and or use some of this equity, especially that's grown over the last few years, to in turn invest into something else, I think it's something to strongly be considered. And I think there's a lot of money to be made on the table here. So yeah, that's pretty much the gist of what we're looking at for the presentation. But I'd like to answer any questions that you guys have. I'll stop presenting just so that I can kind of be back in the conversation a little bit here. And maybe we can go over some stuff that I talked about and kind of go from there.
Amazing. Thanks, Craig.
No worries.
I think it is, I mean, and this is one of the reasons we thought it would be a good idea to have this topic kind of present or talk about this topic, because I've been helping people buy and sell real estate for about 3 years. And I mean, the timing for me was great. And it's been really rewarding to see many clients who got in about 2 or 3 years ago, even a year ago now, and to see that continuous rise. And so knowing that there's a lot of people that do have a lot of equity built in their homes, it's if they're, you know, willing to take educated risk. And it's right now, it's not even that big of a risk. It's just like a guarantee. I wish that I had gotten into buying real estate earlier in my life. I wish somebody had told me that. So it's something I definitely tell my girls now. It's a priority. And I'm working to be able to help them to buy as well, because it's very hard if you're just starting out. But I also feel, even if you're in a position to, like you said, when people are paying rents that are more than what they would qualify for as a mortgage, if you're in a position to purchase, it's like, don't wait.
Well,
I tell everybody, don't wait.
the unfortunate truth, when I say, you know, it's more than what they can qualify for, it's significantly more. It's, you know, I'm seeing clients that are paying like $2,700-$2,800 a month in rent, and they're not qualifying for a $1,500 a month mortgage payment. And if they continue to pay these rents, they're never going to be able to save for the down payment that they need. And when the houses are appreciating as quick as they are, that gap's going to widen. And I believe until we have enough houses to meet the buying demand, that's going to get tougher. So when I hear people wait, it's unfortunate, because I don't think that it's going to be a good solution for them. And if people are in a position, you know, where they want to excel and retire quicker, I think that this, even if you did one or two, I have some of my wealthiest clients, they use private money. They do flips, they do short-term holds. I've had clients buy and just reassign houses. They didn't even close on them, and they're making six figures. So it's pretty crazy right now, but I think using a basic platform and investment strategy kind of like this is something that will almost guarantee you to create long-term wealth.
So who has some questions now? It can be general or specific to your situation. Anything you're curious about?
Nothing?
Come on.
That must have been a bad presentation.
Or so thorough that you've answered everybody's question.
Trevor, your camera's on, but oh, there you go.
Yeah, the thing that I guess we're worried about, and it's not anything to do with this, is like if you get a bad tenant, right? That you don't
that refuses to pay, and then you're stuck with them for like 6 months, unable to kick them out, and then you have to pay the mortgage.
100%, and that's absolutely a possibility. And it's hard to speak to. Obviously, that's a worst case scenario.
Yeah. And there's always going to be risks, right? But
sure. Yeah, and there's risk in anything, right? And
yeah.
Facebook's down 28% this week. So if you were someone that was banking on Facebook, it's hard to say in advance, but that's a good point. I also would say to that too, that I think having a property manager in place, and you know how you're and you know what, the crazy thing is, I see landlords asking for a substantial amount of stuff to get these tenants in there. Like, I'll have people that message me that, you know, may not qualify now, and they want issues of their credit report, which, by the way, full disclosure, I cannot give you, but they're asking for it. So it's a little more in depth now, I think, because people are getting a little bit pickier with who's going in there, because there's such a high demand. But it is a good, for sure. I can appreciate that, and I've seen that, absolutely.
I guess having a really good setup screening process would help with who you have and all that. So setting that up from the get-go is a big thing, I guess.
Well, and I think right now too, because there's so many people that want to be homeowners that are renting, I think the caliber of renters right now are high. And to be honest, if someone's paying you $2,500 a month in rent, more than likely they're a person that's working full time. You know, you can't generalize, but
no, yeah,
someone that you would hope would be, you know, reliable enough to have in there. But no, I get where you're coming from, for sure.
I think also, I mean, and this is just present day, but there is just such a need that so that's going to be effort in vetting the proper tenants, but there are so many people in need of homes. I mean, yes, going through the proper selection process, you can find quality tenants.
For sure. Does anyone else have anything that they need to like clarification on? I know that presentation is very generalized. It's gonna not always be those specific numbers for everyone. But yeah, like any questions specifically about your own scenario, thoughts or concerns with what you saw on there?
I think just make a comment. I think it's given me a little bit of hope because I've been looking at the real estate market and things look out of reach almost. So it just gives me some spark. I thought it was a great presentation because I wasn't aware of. I just wasn't thinking along the lines of what it would be like having, tenants and working away. I'm just thinking as a person on my own and carrying a mortgage and a significant mortgage, looking at the real estate market. It's a little scary.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've had a real estate agent. I get an email every couple of days that gives you a house that seems to be too expensive. And after a while, you just think, well, maybe I'm just going to be a renter from now on. So it kind of gives you an idea that, I do have some money to invest and I do have a decent job. So it'd be nice to think that I could get back into the housing market again.
Well, and here's the thing, like it is skewed, right? It's one of those things where you look at it and there's been houses that I see it every day and sometimes I'm still surprised. But really what that tells me is that it's not happening to specific properties. It's kind of across the board. So if you can get in and you can find something that's reasonable, and I have this conversation with first-time buyers is, don't be picky. Get in, and the house is going to do all of the work for you. Like basic cosmetic things. You get in there, you paint, you clean it up. Maybe redo some kitchen counters, some minor stuff. Some of these houses are appraising. Like I'm doing deals that I did last year. Clients refinancing, and they have 300-400K of equity easy in their house. And like people that purchase something that's maybe not appealing and you put some lipstick on the pig, so to speak, you reappraise it and you go from there. It's I think like you said, it's defeating for some people to look at it, but if you can get in, then it's going to pay dividends down the road 100%.
I think also, I know I've got a daughter at home, but if I was in a different situation and earlier on maybe, or even later on, if it's just me buying something that I can rent the basement out, or buying a duplex and I live in one side and rent the other side and help to subsidize, because as you say, Dave, like to hold a mortgage entirely on your own, it's a lot. It can feel like a lot, but if you can get creative around what that looks like, a duplex, a triplex, and live in one of them, or have an in-law suite in the basement or lower level or something like that. That to me is really where it's at. And I mean, if you know anybody, or if you're handy to buy something and then renovate it in a way that you can rent part of it, I think that's super smart.
And kind of what Kat just said, I have an actual client specific scenario. She purchased a house in Westridge last February. Fortunately, she was going through divorce, having a hard time. She wasn't working a lot due to COVID, but she did have enough to put some money down. So what we did is we closed on her with what's referred to as a MIC. It's like a mortgage investment corporation, where they're really just equity lenders. So she put as much down as she could. They don't really income qualify. They kind of just look at credit and make sure it's, something that could get paid back. She left out 30 grand. She put an in-law suite in the basement. It had a separate entrance. So she went down there, put a kitchenette in. And now what we're doing now is we did a 6-month term and we refinanced her to what's referred to as like a B or an alt lender. And I can now use that income that's generating from that tenant to qualify her for quite a bit more. So what she's actually doing is now taking out 20% of an investment property. And this is a woman that couldn't get approved for 200K about a year ago. Using those market rents, she now has a part-time job. I'm taking the money out. The person that's living in her house now is paying about 80 to 90% of her mortgage. And then she's going to put another 20% down and buy a rental. So you got to think her net worth in the last year and a half is right on the verge of probably tripling to 4xing just from someone else paying for it. And that's kind of what Kat's saying, is that there's going to always be that need, I think, for the rentals. And if you can find something that has the potential to put someone else in there, they're qualifying you for much, much more. You'd be really surprised what rental income can do for qualifying, and your personal cash flow, of course. But you got to think most of these tenants are paying at least 70 to 80% of bigger mortgages, because those rent payments at $2,500 a month, that's a substantial size mortgage. Realistically, that's like around 500-ish. So it really is, it's interesting to see when you have people paying this high rent, that what you can do with that in your favor. But yeah, that's just a scenario for you to give you just perspective on it.
Thank you.
As a recent like first time home buyer, how do you know when to look into investment properties? Like are there signs that you can look for? Are there
Yeah, so I mean, there's always a thing. First time home buyer isn't always necessarily correlated to how the deal was structured. And specifically in this market, like I actually do have first time home buyers that we did a deal for early last year, and we are refinancing now. The only real kicker with those clients is that if they were putting less than 20% down, they're going to be paying out that CMHC insurance premium. That being said, the amount that the house has appreciated the last year, most people don't care if it means that they're furthering themselves into that investment scenario. But really, if they're in and they have the equity, I don't think it's a bad idea to ever consider it, for sure. Because you got to think, we're what, like 40% from where we were last year, Kat? Yeah, your house has essentially doubled in value, and I've seen a lot of it the last year. So if you bought in 2020, like 2019, 2020, I think there's substantial equity in your home, even if you were only 5% down then.
Any other questions?
just like branching off of that, what would the next steps be then for someone like looking to invest?
Like
So-
creating a plan, a strategy.
Yeah, so I mean, in all honesty, the best part really is for me to get an application and everything together for you, so that I can build it out and I can see where we're at. And I'm also the type of guy that I'll tell you right away if I don't think it's a good idea, and I'll tell you right away if I do think it's a good idea, and you're going to get an honest opinion. Because it doesn't take much once I can see the perspective of a deal to really know which way we can go. And if it's not going to be something that's profitable, long or short term, I'll usually tell you kind of right out of the gate, or at least help structure it in a way that might put you in a position to do it soon.
Cool.
Anyone else?
Mhm.
And if you guys have like one-on-one things that you don't want to ask in a group, that's fine. This is a lot of personal finance. So I'll put my email in the chat before we leave. And if any of you guys want to reach out, just let me know. I'm sure Kat can. Did you send it
Well, and
out?
same thing goes, like if anybody would like to reach out to me or Craig, we can definitely help. And yeah, I mean, it's true. It's same with me. Like we're really here. We put this together just to help people, not to feel like there's no sales pitch or pressure. It's just, I feel strongly. I love helping people with real estate. And I do feel so strongly that it's just such an opportunity, a missed opportunity too, if you don't kind of hop on to build wealth and to build some level of financial security and freedom for yourself and your family. And it can make a huge difference. So all that to say, I'm happy to help and answer any questions that you might have offline. I know Craig would be too. There's lots of great people and great professionals, experts in our area that can help. So I encourage people not to feel afraid to reach out, and yeah, I'm happy to help, and Craig will be too.
And Kat would be the first to tell you too, like it'll be times where, she's run scenarios by me and I'll say, hey, I might not know what to do with that deal. I'll be the first to tell you, I've been doing it for 2 years. I don't know everything. and there's certain deals and there's certain properties that you need, you know, other people's expertise on, I'll be the first to tell you how to do it, even if I can't help you do it. I believe what's kind of good for the common good is good for everyone. And if I can help offer knowledge that I have to help you create wealth long term, I don't think there's enough people doing that. I think people are selfish with knowledge. And, you know, I have conversations with Kat about goals or whatever, and it gets my gears turning. So I'm happy to just conversate about it. It doesn't have to be beneficial to me whatsoever, because what it does is it gives me more perspective to more situations. And I like to learn and expand my own knowledge. So if you guys have anything, even if you don't think it would work, let us know. I'm happy to chat further about it and at least give you some direction.
Amazing. Well, I appreciate your time, Craig, a lot. And
Absolutely.
I appreciate everyone taking the time. Anita and Debbie, although you were quiet, I felt your presence and it's nice to know you're here. And yeah, again, reach out anytime. There's lots to learn and we can learn from each other. So.
Thanks, guys. That was so great. I really
Okay,
enjoyed
nice
that.
No,
meet
Yeah, thank you.
See everyone.
absolutely, my
Take
pleasure.
care and hope to see everyone and chat soon. Okay. Have a great
Thanks.
night.
Take care.
Thanks,
you.
guys.
Bye, Robbie.
Bye. Thank you.
Thanks for asking the question.